Hi, everyone. I'm Isaac,
I'm Brian.
I'm Elizabeth.
and thank you for joining us today for our resume and CV workshop. So today we're just going to be talking to you all about how to construct the perfect, well, probably not perfect, but a strong resume or CV. Um, so just jumping into some of the differences between a resume and a CV, I think there can be some confusion. The easiest way to consider this is that these documents are typically intended for different audiences. So potential employers reading through a resume will want to be able to quickly see if you have the skills and qualifications necessary for a position, whereas hiring committees reading a CV are more interested in your academic trajectory. Do you have the qualifications, and are you someone who has the interest, pedagogy, and goals that aligns with a particular program? So as a result, CVs will typically tend to be longer, as the goal is to show your entire progression and research as a whole, whereas resumes will emphasize the skills and experiences that you have because it's more focused on, okay, do you meet the qualifications for this job? Do you have what they're looking for at this company? So next, to talk about some of the common errors and issues with resumes and CVs is Brian.
Thanks, Isaac. In talking about common errors and issues with both resumes and CVs, I think it's important that we talk about what employers look for in resumes specifically. Some elements that employers will look for in resumes include keywords. Increasingly, resumes are not being read by humans, they're being read by software, specifically app tracking systems, which will screen out unqualified candidates. So if you use simple design and formatting, in addition to strong keywords, hitting it on key terms on your resume, those will be easily identifiable by those applicant tracking systems. You'll also want to make sure that you keep your resume neat, with professional presentation. If your resume appears to lack attention to detail, potential employers will think that you lack attention to detail as well. So you just want to emulate the style, your work style, with your resume style. Your resume is one place where it may not make sense to make a stand on multiple Englishes, so you'll want to instead use American Standardized English and more when it comes to grammar and spelling, to stand as a mark of your professionalism. You'll also want to include signs of achievement. Employers will want to see that you have significant accomplishments in your previous jobs, and basically that you haven't just been sitting around all day. So you want to think about key projects that you've been responsible for and make sure that you include those on your resume under your work experience. In addition, employers will be looking to see if you don't have the qualifications they're looking for. Specifically, you also want to keep in mind that employers are looking to see that if you're someone who is trending upward and who they can trust to stay at their organization and make an impact. When it comes to your job descriptions, it's important that you be specific. If you don't have details, it might just seem like you're making stuff up or padding your resume. You want to make sure that your previous experience that you include in your resume is relevant towards the job that you're applying to, and tailor your resume for that job specifically. Hiring committees, when they take a look at your CV, just a reminder that your CV is focused more on the wide scope of your career as opposed to, and your academic pursuits in comparison to a resume. So if you're applying for a faculty or a postdoctoral position at universities and places like that, you want to make sure that your CVs demonstrate all of these qualities that we need here: consistent focus, evidence of disciplinary awareness, emphasis on findings, and of course, emphasis on teaching or mentoring too. These are all parts of your CV that hiring committees are going to look at, specifically in regards to scholarship, teaching, and service. In general, research schools or R1 schools are going to place most of the emphasis on research, just like the name implies. But if you're looking at a smaller liberal arts college, the focus is probably going to be on teaching and service. So you'll want to make sure you emphasize either research if you're applying to an R1 school, or teaching and service if you're applying to a liberal arts college. You want to do your research and figure out what kind of school you're applying to and tailor your CV to that particular institution. It would also be beneficial for you to undertake a certain amount of research as well. Reach out to graduate students and to faculty to learn more about the school, and also check out graduate students' bios or pages on school websites, as well as faculty bios as well, because those will sometimes have sample CVs with them, and you can sort of model your CV off of those examples. When it comes to resumes, some common errors include that students will often make in their some mistakes that students often make in their drafts recur and are more frequent because they don't transfer all of their resume content from one Word file to another. So if you're transferring information from a specific Word file into a new resume file, just make sure that the proper information transfers. Make sure that when you're working with different files that you don't accidentally leave out important information. People also typically overuse bullet points when it comes to creating resumes. While a bulleted list is a good idea, make sure that you don't go beyond 4 bullet points. Anything over 5 bullet points is not emphasizing information anymore. It's merely creating the impression of a long list. It might be helpful for you to think about bullet points as snapshots, or just little pieces of actions you've performed on the job. Kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, significant achievements, mentioning those as kind of cornerstones in each position, and including those as snapshots of actions you performed on the job. And then in contrast, or I guess kind of along the same lines, some common errors people make with their CVs are, of course, people will often mistake a CV for a resume. And like we've said, like Isaac stated earlier, CVs are different from resumes. A CV is a scholarly narrative that presents you as a candidate over a long period of time. People often forget to display their research or teaching experience in context of the mission and values of a university department or a lab when putting their CV together. So you want to make sure you do that. I would recommend that you do some preliminary research about the department or a lab, going back to what I said earlier, and pay attention to newsletters of recent projects and grants. Look at CVs and project descriptions in faculty and grad student bios, like I mentioned, to get a sense of the sort of culture and research mission of the institution you're applying to. Another mistake that people often make with CVs is forgetting to display their research outcomes with accompanying dates to showcase progression over time. So you want to hit on that progression, since a CV is telling a narrative, like I said, and make sure your outcomes with those dates are included in your CV. And to tell you about how you can improve your resumes and CV, Elizabeth is going to take over.
All right. So first things up on content. So content, resumes versus CVs. Resumes usually have sentence fragments rather than complete sentences. You'll notice that verb tenses should be consistent and demonstrate actions that emphasize cause and effect in the job. You can see this by looking at examples in your field as well. Pay attention to those verb tenses. You'll see what I'm talking about. By contrast, a CV can either include sentence fragments, or you'll sometimes notice that complete sentences work as well. And CVs often offer more detail. The language of a CV emphasizes growth over time and should be a portrait of yourself as a scholarly candidate. You'll also want to emphasize context, so explain your contribution to the lab, the university, and the larger academic discipline. You should strive to present as a member of an academic community. All right, so a common pitfall that students encounter when they work on their resumes is forgetting to customize their documents. HR managers can usually see this occurring in the objective statement. A common tendency is for students to write a generic objective statement that is not customized to the company's position and the unique skills and requirements for that position. So just keep in mind that when you're talking about your objective statement, that it should not only state your intentions for applying, how much they want the job, that they occasionally forget to emphasize what needs that they can meet for employers. The content for CV should include measurable outcomes for both teaching and research. Also, academic CVs don't typically include objective statements, but usually have profile statements that act as short academic bios. So if you take a look at the example CV profile, you'll notice a few features. The writer has connected his personality traits, so for example, enthusiasm and determination, with certificates and fire engineer skills. He is explaining his personality in relation to concrete skills and contributions that provide evidence of his capabilities. So in other words, it isn't enough for you to say that you're hardworking or determined. You'll need to back up these statements and provide proof about your accomplishments and character. All right, so now we're up to the final resume checklist. So to sum things up, the 4 most important things for your resume is number 1, making sure that you know what the required qualifications and desired qualifications the company is asking for and the values of the organization. Your resume needs to be tailored to your specific audience. So one of the best ways to do this is to do your research. Look up the company's info, their history, see what you can get on in terms of information on this company. And if you're not sure, don't be afraid to ask. Number 2, you need to have a readable and clear design for your resume. Keep in mind that you want something that is readable by both humans and robots. So this goes back to the applicant tracking systems that I believe Brian mentioned earlier. Number 3, pay attention to the details. Clarity, grammar, spelling, and concision, those all matter. Number 4, you need to also keep in mind how much narrative you're putting into the resume. In some ways, you can think of the resume as the bones of your experience and qualifications. The cover letter puts a nice narrative structure over that and allows the recruiter to see your personality and qualities that may not come through in the resume. Okay, so this is a checklist of things that you can go through before you submit your resume or as you're working on revising it. I would recommend saving the slide or taking a screenshot or whatever works for you so that you have it for reference later. All this information that we talked about can kind of be hard to think about as a whole when you're working on revisions. So this is a good quick hit checklist for you to kind of have in the back of your head while you're working on these things.
Hi, so this is Isaac again, here to talk through an activity that you can work through to solidify some of the things that we've been talking about. So one of the things that we mentioned briefly during the presentation was making sure that you have strong verbs. Having strong verbs will help emphasize your skills and experience, especially when you're thinking through the bullet points. You want to make sure that you have strong verbs to start off each point, each fragment that you have under different experiences. So after this workshop, you might want to take a few minutes to look over the handout and then work through this activity. So the first step for this handout is to highlight all of the verbs on your resume or CV. Look over your document and see if you can identify any repeated or unclear verbs. Then look at the action verb list we have provided on the handout and ask yourself if these verbs need to be classified under one of the categories on this slide. So which category does a verb fit under? Also, just as you're working through this too, make notes if there are things that you're having trouble with or you need help with, because that could be something that you bring back when you make an appointment at the writing lab. So after you've gone through your resume or CV and highlighted those verbs and changed it to one of the verbs on the handout we have, read through your sentences on your document and see if you have included any result-specific language. Result-specific language includes prepositional phrases to, for, by, regarding, on, etc. So again, when you're thinking about constructing your resume or CV, you want to make sure that you're showing that this is something I did, but then also it had an outcome. You want to show that, like, I have both the skills here and that these skills are producing results that's going to benefit the organization you're applying to or the college or university you're applying to. Finally, to wrap things up, I just want to thank you so much for watching the workshop with us and working through some of these things. Please come and visit us at the Writing Lab if you need more help or would like a real live person to read through your resume or CV with you. I don't know where you are right now or if you can make in-person appointments or that if you can actually, or just online, but the information on how to schedule appointments is on the screen and you can use our software to create an appointment and talk to a tutor. Thank you so much and have a great day.